So I walked out and went to the shop, which is sort of 4 or 5 doors down the road, got my ingredients in my basket. And as I went to pay, I realized that the queue was extending more or less outside the shop. And it shocked me. I thought, this is very weird. It's 6 o'clock in the evening on the 29th of March. It's not Christmas. It's not New Year. It's not Diwali. There's no Jewish festival. We live in a Jewish area. Why is there a massive queue? And I thought, well, I haven't got my phone with me. My friend knows I've been unwell. She could potentially be at my door waiting, and I've got no way of telling her that I'm safe, okay, in the shop, just sort of about to pay for my chilies, as it were. So I went to the cashiers who know me well because I've been living here for so long, and I just said, can I leave my basket on the counter whilst I just go and wave to my friends who they also knew well? And they said, yeah, they were like, fine. So I left my basket on the counter and just walked out to the pavement. There is a bus stop obscuring my view, but it was 6 in the evening. It wasn't dark, so I thought I can see enough through it to look up the pavement in the direction that she'd be walking in, put my arm up in the air, signal that I'd be in the shop safe, and that would be that. I couldn't see her. So I walked towards the edge of the pavement a bit further, looked up the road, looked through the bus stop, still couldn't see my friend. And we live on a very busy road in the middle of North London, and you can hear buses because they're noisy, they're big and they're noisy. And as I walked out a few moments earlier, there was no bus coming. So I still thought there was nothing, there's a bus lane there, and I thought there was no bus coming. I thought I was safe to put my foot over the edge. So I walked towards the edge of the pavement more to get a better view into the pavement, and put my foot just over the edge of the pavement to get a better view into the pavement. And as I did, a bus was clearly coming in, which I hadn't heard, caught the edge of my boot and started to drag my foot and leg underneath the wheel of this bus. And I then toppled over, obviously, and I was watching my lower leg and foot be dragged under the wheel of the bus, and I could see my leg disappear very slowly underneath. Well, it felt like it was slow. It wasn't slow, it was very fast, but it felt like it was slow. I was watching my leg disappear underneath the wheel of the bus, and I remember thinking to myself, how much of me and how much of my leg is this bus going to take? Because, the wheel was coming closer and closer as my leg was getting, disappearing underneath the wheel. And I remember thinking, I think I'm dead. I think these are my final moments of my life. And whilst I was underneath the wheel of the bus, I remember there's like for me, there was like an animalistic instinct to get free. I remember thinking, I don't care if I lose my leg. I just don't want to lose my life. I just want to get free. So I thought mistakenly that I could pull myself free from underneath the wheel of this bus. Obviously, you can't, because, you against the bus, you've got no chance. But I kept pulling, thinking I could get myself free. And I remember thinking, oh, there's movement. There was no movement. I was just clearly just breaking my bones inside whilst I was trying to pull. Mm. And I remember saying to myself, if you pull any more, you're going to hear a pop and your leg will be left underneath the wheel of the bus and you'll definitely die.
Wow.
You will disconnect from it. So I just had to surrender, and just kind of go, okay, there's nothing I can do in this moment but allow myself to surrender to what is, because the more I struggle, the more I'm going to injure myself and risk losing my life. What had happened was, at the time of impact, I started to eject, because at the time of impact, I still felt like I was standing up. So I hadn't computed in my mind what had happened, and I still felt my feet firmly on the ground, like I was standing up vertical with my arm in the air, waving to my friend. I still felt myself like there was like an imprint of my soul that was still standing up, or my body that was still standing up. And that's where the disconnect started to happen really quickly after the impact. So after I kind of thought I was standing up, I remember ejecting my body, literally like just popping out, as you say, beautifully, and just floating and rising above my body. And I was rising really fast. And I remember seeing the top of the red bus and looking at my leg underneath the wheel of the bus and just going, oh, that's me. That's really interesting. There was no regret. There was nothing. There was no sense of sadness, happiness. It just kind of was. And then I kind of didn't look down anymore and was looking up. And the higher I floated, the more this world seemed to fall away. But as I was floating up, I remember thinking that my wingspan was the whole of my borough. We have boroughs here in London, the whole of my borough, which is like a town, and back and more. And I remember feeling like I wasn't physical form. I was like this energy, this presence, and it was kind of light and with a white in shade, and it was very, very warm, and it felt very loving. And I remember feeling that I'm everyone and everything and everybody's thoughts and my thoughts. And it was really, really interesting. And then, as I say, the higher I floated, the more this world seemed to float away. And I remember actually seeing shards of light, like coming at me, beaming at me from all directions, and just entering into my heart, beaming into my heart and bathing my heart like a star with love. It was absolutely just beautiful. And I remember seeing these shards of light, and I was at the center of these shards of light. It just felt so love-filled. And in that moment, I felt like my heart was taken out of my chest, literally given a beautiful, beautiful polish to the point where it was sparkling and filled up with love, and then put back in. And I remember hearing a voice which was on the right-hand side of me, and it sounded like a male voice, and it felt like a very familiar voice that I'd known perhaps my whole life. And it felt like felt like I'd accessed God in that moment. And the voice said, "Love is all there is." And it was so strong and profound. I'll never forget it, because it boomed through me. And I remember feeling and thinking, that's God, but that's also me. Because of the way that the voice literally boomed through me, it just felt like the voice was me, even though it wasn't, because it reverberated inside every aspect of my presence, my energy field. And then I also heard the same voice, but another message that was, give love, give love, give love, because love is all there is. I've never felt that much love in my entire life, and it wasn't a human love. It was like an essential being kind of love that I knew, because I knew I was filled up with love at that moment. And I knew also that, if I did go back onto the earth, that love would never get depleted, because it's not a human love where you give and it's gone. It was an essential being type of love that I knew would just always stay. I just needed to access it all the time, It was really quite remarkable. So I did stay up there for a little longer, and I had a really beautiful life review. I can't really go into it too much because I'm reserving that part of the NDE for my podcast, the Burgundy Book, which is going to be out next year. So I apologize for that. No thank you. And so after that had happened, the second part of my NDE, I'll just go back for a second. I really feel like my soul grew 25 lifetimes in that moment. I remember seeing the numbers 25 in yellow and black, and I remember feeling, oh, that's interesting. It's as if it's transcended. After the beautiful life review that I experienced, I screamed, and the scream literally pulled me back into my body like a Hoover. So I only feel like I screamed the last millisecond of the scream, because the first bit was when I was out of my body.